Everyone says we need a different world. The real question is, how do we build one? This is By Any Means, a show about how we build a different world. I'm James Harr, artist, propagandist, and your host. Where most political interviews ask candidates what they believe, we ask them what they're building and what obstacles they face. Today, I'm talking with Ramsey Robinson, the candidate for governor of California with the Peace and Freedom Party. And we're going to break down what his campaign is actually building and whether it can hold up to the system that it's trying to change. So, thank you so much for being here, Ramsey. It is an absolute pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
A lot of people around the country probably don't know about you or your campaign, let alone the party that you're with. Tell us about who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it.
Yeah, again, really, any opportunity to come here and share about what we are building with the Peace and Freedom Party is just so appreciated. And, I got into politics. I'm running for governor because, like so many of us here in California, been a worker, right? If we are what we repeatedly do, then what I have done the far majority of my life, ever since I was 15 years old bagging groceries, is to be a worker. And nothing wrong with work. I think it's amazing. Obviously, this is how society runs. This is how we create everything as workers, create everything around us, everything we see right here.
Labor is the source of all value.
You know that. Sneak peek, we're the ones that should control the wealth that we create. But that being said, I spent so many years not just being a worker, but being a worker in crisis. And I know that I am not alone with the folks that are listening to this. My years right here, we're recording this in LA. Oh my goodness. Just, to the cruelty of this system that puts you in a position where you have to choose between health insurance or paying rent. That was the reality of my life for years. It might even sound dramatic, but it's true. There were times when I was living on Hoover and Adams and I couldn't afford a cup of coffee. Just year after year of living hand to mouth, living on the razor's edge. For viewers who maybe grew up on the East Coast, if you can imagine a basement and no ventilation, no shower, this was my reality for many of my years right here in Los Angeles. And being exploited like this over and over and over again, being worn down, working 1 to 2 jobs like so many of us do, and have nothing to show for it at the end of the month. No, losing relationships because I was not in a position to start a family, like the heartbreak of that, just materially sleeping on floors on a yoga mat for years. Seeing the people most dearest to me here in LA, the coworkers that I love, how it is, wherever we work, it's never the coworkers that are the issue for the most part, it's usually the bosses.
Yeah.
And seeing the positions that we were forced to be in, of having to live 5, 6 together in a 2-bedroom apartment, having to consider, if not accept, other means to survive, whether below the board or above the board, and all the risks that entails. And, I'm not immune from this. There's no one here on the campaign that's on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
And this really, I could literally feel in my body this energy and this anger.
Yeah.
And wanting to do something with it to fight back. And, many of us know it is almost like a physical law of nature that when there is oppression, it breeds resistance. And this is something that I had never heard that quote, but that's the process that was starting to form inside of myself.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I was able to intersect with organizations and organizers about the time that I was about to pop,
Yeah.
And I started to realize and feel the power of taking that anger, uniting it with other people in a as one of my social work teachers said, in a cool anger. And she worked with me. Hey, you got that hot anger. That's great. But let's get that cool anger where you can ice it down and focus it and do something with it. And joining the organization, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and really starting to see that process happen.
Did you start with the PSL and then move to PFP?
10 toes down, always will be with the Party for Socialism and Liberation and with the Peace and Freedom Party. That one doesn't have to, they certainly do not contradict each other. I'm sure we can unpack that a little later, but
that is definitely one of the questions.
You know that, and happy to talk about that. But, and seeing like when Banko Brown got shot and murdered in the Bay where I live now, being a part of an organization that was able to mobilize hundreds of people out in the streets. And not just that, but put real pressure on the DA, Brooke Jenkins, let's say her name, let's say these fools' names,
Her name.
that was spinning a narrative completely contrary to reality.
Yeah.
And not only to mobilize, but to force her to release that footage that showed that Banko Brown was innocent, that was murdered for the crime of being hungry. And not only that, to be in an organization that is like the memory bank that can store the whole process of struggle ever.
Yeah.
And to be able to show and point out that in a $4 trillion economy, there is no excuse that anyone goes hungry, that anyone is forced to go into a Walgreens and steal to eat.
Yes. California, this is like one of the core contradictions. California is somehow the richest state in America and yet has the highest rates of poverty, and I think that it really shows that if you extrapolate, we are a microcosm of the broader capitalist system. You have an immense amount of workers that are creating value across the sort of like lines of types of work, whether it's the farmers in the Central Valley or tech workers in Silicon Valley. It doesn't matter where you are on that line or that income scale. You are being exploited the same ways, the rich landowners that are leveraging and exploiting farm workers are no different in their interests and in the ways that they're going to operate than a Mark Zuckerberg or a fucking Sam Altman, And so I think California, despite New York having its moment right now, I think it's like if we can do it here, we can do it anywhere.
The nation goes as California goes, the nation goes, they say.
Yeah.
And that's what's, I think, so hopeful. And I really appreciate this. A very precise, not analysis, but example of what we're talking about. You can easily upscale both the extreme amounts of wealth and also the extreme amounts of poverty all throughout the country. And in that same hopeful way, when we get together and build a mass movement with electoral politics as part of that movement, this is where we start to move forward a society in California and hopefully outside of the borders of California, where we have the basic dignities and all our necessities met, which, as you pointed out, with a $4 trillion economy, the fourth largest economy in the world, there's no excuse that we can't have
in the world, guys. In the world.
Mm-hmm. Right. I believe right in front of Japan, right behind Germany.
Yeah.
And these are countries as well these are capitalist countries. And I like how you broke down capitalism. These are capitalist countries that have way more dignities and securities for their folks.
Yeah, there's a lot of people on the left that I see want to lambast, let's say, the sewer socialism or the municipal socialism, which is effectively just like social democratic good governance from Zoran Mamdani. Because like at a certain point, it's like, can we have anything? Can we have just one little crumb? And I think I see this as a thing for socialists and communists a lot, is a real desire to jump leaps and bounds right now. And we'll talk about some aspects of this when it comes to PFP and the PSL. But I do wonder about the sense of, can we do we deserve, or should we fight for any kind of reform now, even if it holds certain kind of structures in place? I know that your platform, your program is fairly radical, I guess, like in the landscape of American politics, but literally all you have to say for that is, I don't know, people should be able to go to the doctor for free, and they're like, call me.
Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the sense of us as radicals, us as communists, being open or being allowed to be excited or demand like what we would call a social democratic politic.
I appreciate that. Short answer is yes, because when we say folks on the left or communists or radicals, we're not excluded from being exploited workers. We're not excluded of being in California the over 1 million of us that are behind on rent. We are also part of those tens of thousands of folks that are facing eviction. We are also part of half of that California that is living paycheck to paycheck. And concessions, where they are not the stopping point, they're not the ends. They materially improve our lives in real ways. So the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the Peace and Freedom Party, we will fight for concessions because they matter to us, our families, our loved one in a real way. And on the other hand, we don't stop there. And we see, not only know, we see time and time again that when we turn out, they give those concessions, usually when we mass up in the millions, like when George Floyd was murdered and 35 million of us got together, multi-generational, multiracial, they'll give us a concession. And what happened with that? We turn our back, whoop, and they're gone.
Yeah.
And so this is obviously, again, parties like the Peace and Freedom Party, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, being storage banks for the movement, we'll never forget that. We will never forget how these concessions are put out there and taken back. And the Peace and Freedom Party and this electoral campaign is a part of, eventually, we don't want any billionaires. Now we're saying a permanent tax on the billionaires will, as we say, and let's say it again, with a $4 trillion economy, them hoarding $1.2 trillion, it has been demonstrated that it will fund all of our material needs: housing, healthcare, education, guaranteed retirement, dignified retirement, guaranteeing union jobs at $30. But we're not stopping there. And I'll just end with this for this question. Well, not just for this question, but that this is what is so important to realize about the Peace and Freedom Party, is that we are putting up a fight in the ballot box, in the electoral arena, and it's part of a bigger mass movement that we've seen, going on really for decades, even since the Peace and Freedom Party was founded in 1967 by the anti-war movement and the Black Panthers, up until now. What we see, what's happening in New York, what's happening in Washington State, and we are part of galvanizing and drawing in masses of people to get this. So it's not, hey, can we please have this and can we have that? It's socialism, how we define it, whereas we oppress people, working people, we have the economic and political power, and we're using that economic and political power to plan the economy to meet these needs, not asking for it from the powers that be.
Yeah. So, I mean, you brought up the history of the Peace and Freedom Party, and I guess I'll kind of bucket in PSL with this. But it's been around for a long time. In an electoral sense, you guys haven't had much of any success. I think that the two biggest turnouts was 4% in 2018 with McLaughlin, and maybe 2.7 or 2.8%. I forget what his name is, Luis Martinez. And that was in 2022. So, enough of a share there. But I guess I wonder, do you think there's something different about right now that will allot for electoral success? Or, alongside, let's say, if electoral success is less able to be achieved or more difficult, what are the other metrics of success?
I like how you ended it right there, a metric of success. And that's really key. And we talk about defining what a win is. So just to answer your question directly, a win for us is, and we have to shout out Claudia de la Cruz, who
Claudia
ran
and Karina, baby,
as the presidential candidates with the Peace and Freedom Party.
Yeah. And
that was really fundamental for me, because I had no thought of running in electoral politics at that time.
Yeah.
Claudia and I are in the same party. And so I was 10 toes down, getting this word out all across California. And a win to me, that was a win. That was a huge win for the Peace and Freedom Party, because we were going into spaces, Claudia was going into spaces like we're going to spaces, and even just defining what socialism is and having people come from like the events that you were at and knowing, I know what socialism is right now. Yeah. Not only that, but, and this is really key, is that with Claudia and Karina campaign, like our campaign here for, Peace and Freedom Party for Governor of California, our strongest thing that we have is our ground game. And March just wrapped up. We knocked on 10,000 doors in the month of March.
Yeah, who was the young black woman that spoke, like 2 or 3 people before you?
Maybe I believe Amari.
Amari. It was
Yeah.
Amari. She said something, and it was empowering. She talked about how they went into an Altadena community, and there was an older black woman that
Miss
had
Shirley, shout
Miss-
out.
Miss
Met
Shirley.
with her just, was it, yes, that might have been yesterday, 2 days ago. Met
Yeah.
with Miss
So
Shirley.
Mrs. Shirley, shout out
Yeah.
Miss Shirley. She had lost her home in the Altadena fires, and PSL and the party, oh my gosh, the Peace and Freedom Party, so many P's, yeah, Peace and Freedom Party, they went and talked to her, and they spoke about the program and what they're trying to do, and we have someone fighting for insurance commissioner right now, Lalo.
Oh, Lalo Vargas.
Lalo Vargas, yeah, and saying that we're fighting to directly meet a material need that they have right now, which is the insurance companies are quite possibly, next to real estate, like one of the worst elements of contemporary capitalism. We're working to directly confront them and make sure that you are made whole after effectively what is the consequences of climate change that are all determined by these big corporations. And this message, because they're speaking to a material need, that this woman got fucked over by insurance companies from a fire that shouldn't have happened because Karen Bass decided to fund the police over the fire department, and that we constantly are prioritizing oil and coal over renewable energy sources and a Green New Deal. And that spoke to her. And now she is in the community evangelizing and talking to all these people because she has the trust of the community. And I was like, that's such a small thing. Like, you're like, I got one person. But now you got one person that is a voice, a powerful voice in her community. Huge. That is a win to be celebrated.
Absolutely. And when I met with Miss Shirley again, it's like they can't, but people are so unused to politicians coming and actually sitting down and chopping it up. And that's why this is I think such a win for us, is being able to do that with so many people with this campaign. And like I said, we just came from Pasadena Community College, where I went when I had enough moment and realized I had to start to affect some change. And we had young people right there, like volunteering right there on their phones, like starting to sign up for these volunteering sessions, and just increasing this reach that we have to share this socialist message, to get more people in this movement, and to also, message things like we're talking about the environmental crisis that we're in, clearly caused by capitalism, clearly these investor-owned utilities that have shown us over and over again now. I mean, you look at the campfires in Paradise, California, where 85 people were murdered because PG&E. I'm up in the Bay Area. It's Pacific Gas.
Oh, I was there during Christmas when the power went out.
Okay, so you know what I'm saying. So they've showed us so much that they're under capitalism, as you pointed out, putting profit over everything. They're so stingy that they wouldn't even fix the equipments, and that this is what causes these fires, these deaths. 18,800 structures. These are working class people's homes that burn to the ground. And so we can message, we are going to take that power away from the investor-owned utilities and make it public, put it in the ratepayers' hands and the workers' hands, make California green, clean, and energy free for all of us, just to be able to open people's minds that this is a possibility, that we don't have to have the fires and the destruction that we see here, that there is a better world, there is a better way. This is a win for us.
Yeah, so I think that there's 2 elements to this that I think are important. There's one, broadening someone's imagination, their political and economic imagination, and widening the scope of what the future can look like. And I think that is something that your platform does well. I think it's putting policies there that are popular, at least are very much so on the left. Quite a few of them, I'd say broadly, with the American populace. I think there's probably some things that for an average voter are relatively alienating. And I think that that's an important thing here, because one thing, I'm only talking about Zoran. I'm only going to talk about Zoran here because of his success in a city that has so many different identities and variables. And I think that it's pretty emblematic of something like a California. Mm-hmm. And he limited his thing to these 5 pieces in an affordability agenda. He said, the thing that everyone cares about right now is they can't afford to live here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to get into much of the other politics. I think he like knows them fairly well. I think in his private life, he's probably a bit more socialist or whatever than in his public and governmental life. But he created a platform there that I think was both very approachable and speaking to an immediate need that is a little bit depoliticized, I'd say, but effective. And then I think the other thing that he did was he made the attainment of those policy proposals feel very practical, very approachable and feasible. And this is one thing that I think you probably get this question all the time, but I think it's important, is let's say, because you're going against monumental odds. And I think just like you said, if you could win just by broadening the network and the coalition on the left and of these newly activated socialist leftists, anti-capitalists, what if you were gonna do the 5-point plan, which of your proposals would you say are like your main 5 core tenets? And then after that, I'll ask you about what does it actually look like to put those into effect?
For sure. Yeah. So number one is this tax on the billionaires, which is so key because you're identifying who the enemy is.
Yeah.
It's not this nebulous force. It's not by accident. It's not a glitch that we are in the situation that we are. There are actual people with actual names, with actual lives that are responsible for this system that is completely grinding down folk like us. So saying a permanent tax on those billionaires, also saying that it's 194 of these people, which is I think very key and precise.
Yeah.
That and that's really important because really it's not a split between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's a split between those 194 people, billionaires, and the 40 million of us on the other side.
Yeah.
So saying that a permanent tax on these people that are hoarding $1.2 trillion of our money, this is what we message, that are spending $540 million of our money to prevent bribing. Really, the billionaires are bribing both the
legalized bribery.
Come up, right? And that's the mechanism, we say, that will fully fund really the other points, which are guaranteed housing, right? Freezing the rents, no more evictions, 1.4 million beautiful homes, taking back through eminent domain properties from
We're
these.
getting out of the 5. We have to settle on 5.
Okay, I got you. Let me get a little more broad then.
Yeah.
Housing, healthcare, education, dignified retirement, guaranteed jobs for all of us.
Okay. Jobs guarantee been one I'm on for many years now. I think it is an extremely viable governmental option to basically set a minimum wage floor. A lot of people don't know that is if the government comes in and says, we are going to offer guaranteed employment for anyone that wants it at, let's say, 25 an hour or 30 an hour or something. Them doing that sort of de facto sets a wage floor. And because that's a job that anyone can get at any time, it's going to be harder for a money-grubbing capitalist to offer less, even if we're not able to, let's say, move the needle on the minimum wage above whatever it's at, 15, 17, 20, whatever it's at. And so it's a really, really important and I think powerful thing that speaks across political identity lines, because the right wants to say like, oh, you lefties, you're so lazy. We're saying, no, we want everyone to go to work. And then everyone else is just like, we want to go to work. So it's a really powerful one. As far as the healthcare one, this one I think is important. And I know that the fundamental thing you're saying is to pay for things, we need to be able to tax the billionaires. So maybe it actually makes more sense to start there. What are your obstacles? Let's say it's day 1, your first 100 days, it's your first year, whatever. How do you get the billionaire tax in effect when the governorship isn't able to do that? That rests in the California legislature.
Question. We use the millions of people that put me in office to continue to push forward to get what we want. And we're transparent. We're never promising anything that we can't do. We know that this is a fight. We know that this is a struggle. We know how vicious these billionaires are, all their propaganda. And we can, if we want, break down like when they say, oh, well, if you tax the billionaires, they're going to leave. I want to answer your question directly here, but this is why it's so important that this is a mass movement that we're building. Because if I am, or any of us, because we do have a slate, you mentioned Lalo, Frank Lara for superintendent of public instruction, Megan Adams, who lives down the street, is a bus driver for controller. Where's the money going in California? If any of us get in office and push these things through the legislative channel, well, these are the issues that got us in office, elected. And so all these people we're not dumb. Folk like us are not dumb. We're going to see again who it is that's trying to keep us, prevent us, build walls up from us getting that. And we have complete faith in our class. We have complete faith in folk like us that are going to put us in office, that will continue to fight for these things.
Yeah, there's something that happened in Bernie's 2020 campaign where he said, I don't want to be the commander in chief. I want to be the organizer in chief. And I thought that was really, really potent kind of like phrasing. Because I think that to get a lot of these things done, you do have to be able to organize people effectively. And I'm sure that some of those confrontations and organizational strategies, you'll only find like kind of like once you're in there. I'm sure there's other ones you're forecasting. But the thing that I always found myself saying or thinking was like, brother, you have the numbers right now. Like being an organizer in chief, like what are you going to do differently as president, as organizer in chief than you are as organizer in chief right now? Because you're mobilizing the same people.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's where I'm thinking that in a long shot race, I'm voting Peace and Freedom Party, guys.
That.
But in a long shot race like this, it seems like the real, no matter what, achievable goal is expanding the organization.
Absolutely. And that's so well put. And you know what? Bernie Sanders had the organization and the people, but he didn't have the party.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to put the Democrats on blast for a little bit, only because we see, right, that well-intended people, which I understand. My daddy's black. Growing up in a black household, you're programmed that the Democrats are on your side, that they're for black people, that for working class people, for families, and then we see time and time again, right, that they are completely unable or lack the political will to get the changes that we need. Right. We saw that. I mean, I'm in my 40s. I was coming up when Clinton was president.
Yeah.
And then, they were calling him, I think this is actually pretty messed up. They were saying he was the first black president in the sense of that, like he was supposed to be for black folk. And I mean,
I thought it was because he got dome in the office and played saxophone.
Well, the saxophone was part of it, which is just so disgusting that this is how he's trying to appeal. But really, when you look at what this man did, he passed a crime bill written by Joe Biden, by the way, right?
The 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill, everybody.
Thank you. You know what? Look it up. I mean, this is, and we talk about these things in the bills, and man, I got family in prison right now because of this bill.
Yeah.
So this is personal to me, that we call out the complete inability of the party, maybe not the Bernie Sanders or whoever you want to put in there, or the Mamdanis, but the party to do that. And that's because they're wedded to the billionaire class. And when you're wedded like that and you're getting that money from them, they call the shots, and they're going to tell you what's going to happen. And they kneecap Bernie Sanders, and Clinton, fired 500,000 federal workers. Obviously, Obama bombed black people in Libya. Goes on and on. Biden continued the $32 billion a year that are going to fund a genocide, not essentially, by definition. Yeah. So we have enough evidence now. And so a person like a Bernie Sanders, what he didn't have is the Peace and Freedom Party, which, is the party that is anti-war since 1967, when even the Democrats weren't even running an anti-war candidate. You didn't have that choice.
Yeah.
So it speaks to the power of having a party that's not connected to the billionaires. And I believe it shows it reveals and takes the mask off the Democratic Party, that it's two sides of the same coin, the Republicans and Democrats.
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of By Any Means. To watch the full episode, make sure to go to means.tv. Love and solidarity, comrades.